Lena sat at the far edge of the Academy transit platform, her posture straight yet heavily burdened by the silence that clung to her like a second skin. The platform curved in a wide half-circle, built of smooth silver alloy that reflected the pale blue glow cast by the overhead lamps. Every cadet hurried past her, their boots tapping brisk rhythms, yet none slowed, none glanced toward her, and none dared to occupy the empty space at her side. The reason was simple in their minds, though not for her heart. She was different from them. Not dangerous. Not harmful. Simply different. Her species from a quiet world at the rim of the Orion Passage carried an old stigma held by many across the Alliance. Though the past conflict had ended generations ago, suspicion lingered like faint static in the air. It was easier for others to avoid her rather than confront the gap between myth and truth. Lena had grown used to the empty space beside her, though the ache never left. She tried to hide it behind discipline and stillness, yet the hollowness sat beneath her ribs like a cold stone. The announcement chime echoed across the platform. A training shuttle would arrive soon to take cadets to the orbital range. The others formed small groups, laughing and adjusting their gear. Lena remained alone. Her gaze drifted over the launch lane until she noticed motion in the far corridor. A tall figure walked with an easy stride that contrasted the stiff discipline of the other cadets. His uniform bore crisp lines, and his boots made measured steps, but there was something relaxed in his gait. He carried a flight helmet under one arm, its visor catching the light. He was human, a fact evident in his posture, hair, and calm focus. His name, as everyone whispered with a mix of fascination and disbelief, was Mark. Mark was a new arrival to the Academy. Rumor claimed he had flown atmospheric craft since he was 12, and had completed advanced neural sync exercises long before most cadets learned basic control protocols. Others spoke of the surprising resilience and speed attributed to humans, qualities that placed them on the border between legend and exaggeration. Lena only knew that he was confident without arrogance, at least from what she had observed from afar. He never joined the louder groups, nor did he boast or demand attention. He simply acted with a quiet certainty, as though every step held purpose, and calm weight. Lena straightened when Mark moved closer. At first, she assumed he would walk past her just like the others. Her shoulders stiffened in the usual reflex. She pressed her gloves together, hoping not to be noticed. Yet Mark slowed instead of speeding up. He paused near the bench where she sat. He looked at the empty space beside her, as if trying to understand why such an obvious area had not been claimed. Then he gave a small nod, as though arriving at a private decision. Without hesitation, he sat beside her. Not roughly, not dismissively. Softly. Lena felt the air shift with his presence. A delicate warmth spread across the cold metal between them. She did not look directly at him at first, afraid of what she might see. She expected discomfort, suspicion, or perhaps the careful distance most others held when forced to stand next to her. Instead, Mark sat with steady composure, adjusting his helmet and setting it on the bench. He breathed slowly, as though taking a moment to appreciate the quiet surrounding them. Only after a few breaths did he turn toward her. "You waiting for the shuttle to the orbital range?" he asked. His tone was even, polite, and without any hint of strain. Lena nodded once. She found words caught behind her teeth. Most conversations ended awkwardly for her, so she had learned to stay silent. Mark seemed to notice, but did not push. He looked back at the launch lane as the soft hum of the incoming shuttle vibrated through the platform. "You fly support craft or navigation systems?" he asked. "Navigation," she said. Her voice came out quieter than she intended, but steady enough. "Good field," he replied. "Many fail to understand its demands." She blinked, startled by his simple sincerity. The shuttle glided into the dock. Cadets formed lines in front of its open hatch. Mark rose, picking up his helmet, then looked at her again. "Walk with me," he said. It was not a command. It was an invitation. Lena stood slowly. Her boots clicked on the floor as she followed him toward the line. The other cadets whispered sharply when they saw the human walking beside her. Their eyes flicked between the two of them, full of disbelief and worry. But Mark ignored every glance with an ease she could not understand. The hatch hissed open as they boarded. Inside, metal seats lined the narrow cabin. Cadets claimed them in clusters, leaving gaps around Lena wherever she stepped. She felt the familiar sting rising. Before it could settle fully, Mark touched her elbow lightly, guiding her toward a pair of seats near the front. He took one and waited for her to sit in the other. The shuttle lifted with a soft tremor. Through the narrow windows, the horizon curved away, replaced by open darkness, speckled with scattered stars. Mark rested his hands on his knees, relaxed even during ascent. Lena kept her gaze forward to avoid the stares coming from behind. After a minute, Mark spoke again. "You are quieter than most," he said. "I do not mind quiet." She inhaled slowly, surprised again by the lack of judgment in his tone. "Others do not feel the same," she replied. Mark tilted his head thoughtfully. "They are afraid because they do not understand," he said. "That does not make their fear reasonable." Lena turned toward him fully for the first time. His expression held no doubt. It was gentle and firm in the same breath. She wondered how someone could speak with such certainty on behalf of a stranger. The shuttle reached the orbital range, a circular training platform floating above the planet. Dock clamps engaged with a dull snap as the hatch slid open. Cadets stepped out onto the gleaming deck, forming lines once more. Instructors approached to brief the group. Lena and Mark stood near each other at the edge of the formation. The instructor, an older officer with deep lines around his eyes, announced the exercise. Teams would pair up, each group facing simulated hazards in a timed course. Pairs needed strong communication and trust. Lena waited for her name to be called. She expected to be paired with whoever remained at the end. She had been placed last before. When the instructor read her name, Mark stepped forward before the officer could continue. "Pair her with me," Mark said. His tone was steady but respectful. A few cadets gasped softly. The instructor raised a brow. "You are certain?" he asked. "I am," Mark replied. The instructor considered him for a moment and nodded. "Very well." Lena felt her pulse climb. She had trained often, but never with someone who volunteered by choice. Mark handed her a small comlink. "For internal channel," he said. "When we begin, follow my signals, and I will follow yours." She nodded again, though her mind swirled with uncertainty. They entered the simulation bay. The room's walls shimmered as holographic barriers rose around them. The floor shifted to resemble the narrow corridors of a damaged vessel, flickering lights and drifting smoke adding urgency. A timer flashed above the course. When the signal blared, they moved. Lena read the map data from her wrist screen. Paths split in unpredictable patterns created by the simulation. Her role required rapid analysis, choosing safe routes under pressure. Mark moved like liquid force, agile yet grounded, trusting her directions without question. "Left, then down ramp," she said. He nodded and turned sharply. Sparks burst from a ruptured panel ahead. Mark shielded her with his shoulder, guiding her past falling fragments. When the floor trembled beneath them, he steadied her with a hand against her arm. Not rough, not patronizing, simply steady. They reached the second sector faster than any other pair. Lena calculated a bypass route around a simulated hull breach. Mark listened to her instructions with complete focus. He did not doubt her. He did not question her capability. When they reached the final chamber, alarms blared and panels slammed shut. Lena recognized a pattern from the Academy manuals. She tapped her wrist screen rapidly, sending directions to a sequence of access points around the room. "Strike these panels in order," she said. Mark followed her pacing without hesitation. Each struck panel glowed. The barrier lifted. The timer stopped with a soft chime. They had completed the course in record speed. Other cadets watching from the observation gallery murmured in disbelief. Many had assumed Mark would falter by choosing her. Instead, he had excelled, and he had done so alongside her. Lena breathed slowly, grounding herself in the present. Mark looked at her with a small, genuine smile. "Well done," he said. "You led us clearly." Her chest tightened with a warmth she could not yet name. "Thank you," she said, "for choosing me." Mark shook his head lightly. "I did not choose you out of charity," he said. "I chose you because I could see you stand alone while others avoided you. And I know what it is like to carry that weight, even if for a different reason." Lena studied his face, trying to understand the layers of his words. "You stand confident," she said. He smiled faintly. "Confidence and solitude often walk together," he replied. They left the simulation bay and returned to the observation deck. The other cadets stepped aside as they passed. Some still stared, but their gazes held more curiosity than dismissal. A few even nodded respectfully. Mark noticed, but remained silent. He walked beside Lena with the same calm stride as before. When they reached the platform railing, he rested his arms on it and looked out at the stars. Lena stood,